There we go.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about what it's like to be the sole designer and kind of like foundings that I learned. One, in a changing field of design, and then two, also in an emerging market. Before I talk about that, a little bit about my background. Before this role, I was sitting a lot in between arts and sciences, and I was in Cinema 4D and Houdini and like doing all of these renders and writing plugins for these. Has anyone used Houdini here before? Okay, nice, okay. Whoa, Whisper Flow took over for a second. So I was doing a lot of this kind of procedural mappings in Houdini, and a lot of research also on what it means to be an image, like touch designer. It does feel like I'm talking a little bit about everything right now, but actually it's really connected to the role that I've been doing right now at Anam as well. What this meant is that I was doing a lot of videos like this and interactive experiences, also having exhibitions and like showing them around. And I think the role of creative tech is underplayed still a little bit right now, because art has always interpreted the current time, and tech and tools are a part of that as well. So I was using a lot of the art that I was creating to interpret new technologies, which is in some sense also what I am doing right now with Anam. So being the sole designer kind of means that it's one role across product, brand, systems, sometimes code, and sometimes customers. And what is Anam? It's we're creating the next interface for technology with real-time avatars. So, okay, what does that look like? Kind of looks like this. This is Alistair. Okay, it's gonna work on my speaker here, so like I'm gonna try.
Hey, how is it going?
Hey, I'm actually doing a live demo.
Oh, is that for Granola's design engineering night?
Yes.
Great. What part of the demo are you working on?
Okay, anyways, you get the picture. So Granola always taking notes, yeah. So this is kind of the product, and you can also invite them to the meeting or like do basically an agent with a face. And that whole interaction that you've just seen now works like this, but in milliseconds. So it's quite a technical product, and it goes from user through the WebRTC connection, and this whole flow is kind of what we do, and we add a face to that whole interaction that you've just seen. And to bypass all of this, there's also an option to like just use the Anam face on top of existing agents. And this is important because we want to highlight how this can be customized later on. So this is kind of how you build it. I'm gonna do a quick demo of this. Oh my God, live product, okay. So this is the current lab where you can like set the prompt and set director's notes. I'm gonna go over this as well, but basically you have like each tab, and you can maybe like Alistair, maybe it's like different types of Alistair, photorealistic as well, or you can have like, this actually started, the animated ones are a new thing. We actually started out as photorealistic. So there's a lot of, tons of avatars to choose from. And then voices to add to those avatars, and LLMs and tool calling and all of this other stuff. So this is what it looks like as of right now. But it didn't actually always look like this. So when I joined, this was the lab. And yes, that many scrolls. I'm not showing this to be like, I'm not showing this to be like one is better than the other. I'm just saying that this is the best that was possible at the time, the same way that this is also the best that is possible at this time with the current constraints and priorities. And it's the same team, by the way. It's usually a team of like me and an engineer, either backend or product, that were working on this, and also it's the same two people that built this as well. So the only difference is basically that I was added to the team a while ago. And it was a journey. I think a lot of people want to join a very flashy and quite polished already product, but actually design is often needed in stuff like this where people don't even know how to even look at design or interpret it. So my work on this was kind of improving it step by step. And I'm gonna skip a little bit from this, but adding dashboards, we had the panels on the right side. We weren't ready to move them to the left. Then we moved them to the left and stuff like this. So this is kind of the evolution of it. And then also, while I'm doing this, I'm also kind of prepping the website and rebranding. It's in a linear way right now. It was in no way linear while it was happening. So right now I added a design system tab so that I can see all of the components in production. This is in the lab. At the time, this was 4 or 5 months ago, and I was should be in Figma, and so many tools are coming out. So I just put the whole component system on prod, and that was the source of truth. And it's always because everything is going so fast, there was no way I could keep that up in any other tool. And to rebrand, we needed a brand first. So we partnered up with Reboot, and this is kind of informing how I end up bringing it back into the product. So I have to explain a little bit about that too. Oftentimes when you're the only design person on the team, you're kind of in the room to talk about decisions and to explain maybe this should be something that we go for or maybe not. In this case, both situations were very much so on the table for a website. And my role was kind of there to be okay, we like this because why? And you just keep asking why. And actually it's because it's interpreted as infrastructure. But then you can show infrastructure in many different ways as well. So that's kind of an example of my input there. And I think that's also often the role for in-house design voices whenever you do work with an agency. Another example is this one of an avatar page for blogs, but it wasn't necessarily something that I felt comfortable scaling and developing further. So then we kept iterating, and then okay, this one was better, but it wasn't popping, make it pop. So why? It turns out this one was popping because it was bright. So then we made it bright, which also meant that I have a system now that I can scale on graphics or bring it within the lab or stuff like this. Same for avatars. So we had this ASCII option, and a lot of this is quite anthropomorphic AI stuff, so it kind of felt a bit cold and it was not very unified. So 11 Labs has the orb, and it's a very clear the orb is the voice. I don't know if you guys know 11 Labs, so you should know. And we wanted a way to make avatars abstract as well and unified. So we came up with this half-tone effect, which I can also then use further on in assets and stuff like this. And it's very reusable. Circles are very primary component, so that kind of worked out well. But again, you're kind of there in the room to say, what is this gonna look like when 50 people join, when 100 people join? Is this design actually gonna be able to cover all surface areas as well? And that happens at the point of in this case, it happened at the point of the rebrand. So now we have a style guide. What does it look like when the avatar is idle, active, technical specs, and the primary color being orange with these detailed dashed line diagrams. So now that we have the rebrand from Reboot, it was kind of my role to unify those two things and bring that design language that unify systems both across product and brand. So that kind of meant both setting and maintaining the bar for quality while doing it super fast, super fast. So on the brand side, it meant that with my product knowledge, I was able to create these assets and market the product better with super specific stuff I don't know if you can see it, context injection or new SDKs or new features and toggles we were launching. And then also on the website stuff, I was able to scale web pages with like new templates and creating new components, developing the sitemap, and also creating microsites for new features. So the work with the agency was kind of laying down the foundations on top of the work that I would be doing in scaling. And this is actually an interesting one because, so we just launched a new model. And is this fully zoomed in? Oh my God. Yeah, we had launched a new model, and I knew that people were going to want to share this and customize it. So basically, I turned this into a shell where people through Slack can now say, hey, change this. And then it creates a new website with the same shell. So the design language is unaffected, but it creates like different text here, different CTAs, different stuff like this. So that allowed people to create websites through Slack and like send PRs, but it still looks like this, like it actually does. Before that, it was a lot of like take an Anam widget and then like add it to a whatever agent software the GTM team was working on, which obviously ended in some purple gradients sometimes, but that's okay because now we have this system. Is this also 100%? Yeah, okay. Other things include like making plugins, publishing them, marketing them, and kind of having this like end-to-end pipeline of like, you take the system and then design all the way through production, and then you also build it, and then you also market it maybe. Another example of scaling design was that I built this shader tool, which like allowed me to export my own settings and also allowed the team to create whatever assets they wanted because it has these like presets. So as long as it's in the presets, it's okay, and no one has to like recreate anything off topic basically. So this allowed me to create assets like this and like expand the brand that way. It's different color orange, I know. So that's kind of like on the brand side. And it's always like website, brand, and then product, and like you just keep upping both kind of at the same time. So now it was time to bring all of this stuff into the product. Now that was quite the project. Can you see this? Yeah. So I think I also want to share is that you usually aren't really given problems. You kind of have to find them and then also argument them and then like dedicate time to that. And it's never just one problem. So for example, one of the problems was that we had this product where anyone can easily copy it. It doesn't feel like a brand. And someone actually did. They actually like did this like save as web page and then fully used it as their own product. It did happen. I am taking it as a compliment. It's a new market. It's okay. I also didn't have anyone who to copy, and I probably would have inspired myself from other people if there was I don't know how. I didn't know anything about avatars before joining, so there was a lot of stuff to like figure out how to build and how to make it easy for people to build avatars. Another problem was that whenever you would start a session, you couldn't really tell what you started the session with. So then we added these chips at the bottom, so you can still change the settings but see what you're talking to. And another problem was that, for example, there was so much to be configured that people lost themselves. Like they would select an avatar that is male but forget to change the voice, it would be female, and then you would start the session and then you have a poor experience. So now we kind of have these like recommended things in the tabs, which make it a lot easier to select avatars. Another one was also creating custom components that scale across each tab, and we're probably going to have more tabs, obviously. So CTA at the top, and then you have this like whole component with a footer, and like none of this existed before this like, okay, I said 5 days, maybe it was like 7 day sprint. And then on top of all of that, we were also releasing a new feature. So this new feature was called Director Notes, and it was something that the research team had been working on for a long time. It had a direction, so if you're familiar with cues or any type of art direction to like any type of cues that you would give to anyone to change their performance is kind of what this is as well. So it was like all these different names that are quite hard to understand. If you look at speech adherence, it's not quite easy to understand what that toggle actually does. So I started researching, I don't think you can see this actually, but I started researching like what is a CFG scale, talking a lot with research, what does this mean? How are other people representing it? Is it actually in the lab? Is it not? Turns out they were calling it style. So other companies that also had CFG scales were calling this style, but there wasn't really anything for avatars specifically. So should it be style? Should it be like, I kept going on all of these different things. And then actually, why don't we just shorten the whole component and add it to the top, because that saves up space. And does it really need to be adherence? Maybe it can be strength. But then actually it had to follow the docs. So the docs are system prompt, and then director notes is like the main one, and then you have your preset style and whatever CFG value comes next. So I was like, does it have to follow the docs? Like, I don't know this stuff. So then I researched, actually, yes, it does have to follow the docs. And it's like, the closer it is to the docs, the better, especially because we have such a technical audience and a lot of people are also following and matching their UI to the docs. Then I lost it here a little bit because I was researching like actors and performances. I was like, if you're Christopher Nolan, you're giving cues to an actor on like character expressiveness. I was like very big tangent there. And then luckily Google came out with a paper that said that they're releasing director's chair. So we were like, okay, director notes. It's called director notes. And then that made it a lot easier to also just blend two into one toggle called expressivity and then add style. So I'm telling you all of this because a lot of the work is so cross-functional. I like across research and growth and engineering. This sprint like would have been very, very hard to do like if you don't just dig deeper into problems like where you need to dig deep and then also keep surface level on stuff that is like maybe can be fixed later, or sometimes, a lot of the times, polish is added afterwards because of how fast things are shipping. And once an idea is validated like this one, then you dig deep and like try to improve it more and more. So after the whole redesign of the product as well, you add it to the design system and create a shared language for surface areas. So that's the component that I mentioned previously in the design system tab from the beginning. This allows everyone to kind of have a shared language and say, hey, even if like someone on the sales team is like, oh, this button doesn't look right, let me check if it's in the design system. And then it's kind of like everyone has eyes on it, which is a lot better. It's not perfect, there's many things to improve, but it's much better than kind of like, does it look right or not, which is like what it was like before. So the design system is kind of kept in here. And on top of that, it's also being like in a team that's like a research-led team where a lot of people have PhDs in STEM-related subjects. That means that design is kind of always a function of growth, or it has to lead to data. So argumenting a lot of design problems that you do with data that is worth spending time there kind of looks like it ends up being really important. So for example, if the rebrand started with this too, it's not really enough to say it increased. It has to be like really by how much and within how long, and if it's with significance or without, or maybe it's no significance, maybe it's like only for organic search, maybe not like, it's not like equally split across the traffic. So things like that aren't necessarily, I mean, this wasn't like intuition to me in the beginning, but obviously you end up doing like the full cycle and owning things end to end. Which brings me to this, owning things end to end. First of all, where are the ends? Because I oftentimes, like when you say end to end, it kind of means like, here's point A and here's point B, and like you go in a straight line. And I think that works for like later stage companies where there's a process and there's a system. But when you join an early stage startup as a founding and sole designer, there are no ends and there is no specific process, and that's what you're there to kind of figure out. I'm starting to see this end-to-end. I don't also ownership, great. I'm just the end-to-end part. So I am I'm gonna go through what I think is end-to-end by showing you the tools that I use, because there's a different tool for each step, and I'm seeing it as a loop right now rather than a end-to-end. So, loads of tools. There's a lot of anxiety, I think, right now in the design field, and of feeling overwhelmed. So, to help, I actually always start with pen to paper or whiteboard. That's so calming, so I just start with that. Oftentimes, either in paper or Figma, designing stuff, and then buying, you're argumenting why you should work on that problem. So that comes with data and backing yourself up to say hey, this is worth working on. And then after designing it, you're coding it and also pushing it with Cursor. I've been a big fan of Conductor recently. Has anyone used Conductor? Yes, okay, nice. It's great for multitasking, which I love. And then also, so after you publish it, then you again test the data. Maybe you're marketing it with Lottie files and Figma, and then you go back to the data to test your assumptions, and a lot of them are wrong. That's kind of what this whole loop is about. And I've also added Destin in here. Shout out to the founders, they're in the room. I think it's actually a great tool also to scale designs across the team, because now that everyone, the ends are so blurry, everyone is making surfaces across engineering and design, and this is a great tool to kind of maintain that standard and let everyone create those surfaces. And then stuff like Kriya we use for the website and other node-based systems. I'm on my last slide now, last two. Another weird one a little bit is forward deploy designer. What even is that, right? A big part of being so early on with a sales team is that they need a lot of assets to reach out with. So I actually end up partnering with the sales team to create assets, for example, for a new brand. I replicate their website and then I add Anam on top to be hey, this is what it would look like if Anam was part of your product. So a lot of brand extraction, I can't show any of them, but a lot of that work as well kind of taught me what brand and websites shouldn't look like to be easily extractable, because I think you want that. And also working with current customers to help them use the lab and kind of learn from them that way. And also doing events. This is also part of what I've been doing, which is also kind of full circle, because this is also a great community to be part of. And I think a big part of being the only designer is also that you can reach out to people, and every 2 weeks you speak with someone from, I'm sure I've reached out to many of you in the room right now, to be hey, help me with this, I don't know how to do it. And then I think that's a really big part of that too. So thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if we started yet.
Yep.
But I was going to ask, who's the main user of this application that you built for Avatar?
Yeah, language learning is a big one. You have an infinite tutor that can speak so many languages with all the patience in the world. So Preply uses us, recruitment use cases or training, training for interview, training for negotiation, anything like that, yeah. Yeah?
My question is a bit about the bigger picture, because you mentioned that end-to-end. As a founding designer, you can't just think about today, you have to kind of think about tomorrow as well, in terms of what your brand is and the direction you're leading and stuff. The ASCII stuff and the dithering effects and stuff that you did maybe a year ago wasn't that common, but it is coming as a trend now. But the way you've done it and for Anam's brand is it's got so much personality. So how do you kind of forecast the trends, or how do you do it the best way, or how do you steer away from them? What's the philosophy behind it?
A philosophy. I mean, this was a lot of back and forth with the reboot, which is like, shout out to Ivan and the team because they were so helpful on this. But I think a lot of it comes to just being like, just looking a lot of what's out there. And we saw that the ASCII effect was really overdone. And then OpenAI had this like circle things that they had used in some ads, but not really fully like doubled down on. So that kind of helped. But also reading about history of art also helps. Like, yeah, just knowing what history always repeats itself, and I think there's trends coming back and forth all the time. So I think that's a big part as well. Yeah. So many questions. Yeah.
For the presets characters,
Yeah.
how did you decide which voice and to mix and match with which face and all that?
You mean, oh yeah, so this was like because of our like amazing research team.
Yeah.
So for example, they would take, like they would scan this image and then they would be like, what's the most likely voice for William? And then it'd be like,
Hola, ¿qué tal va todo?
okay, whatever, you know.
Hi there, it's nice to meet you.
And then that's kind of like how it was matched. There's a lot of science behind this as well on like if you have a certain face shape, your voice can sound a different way. Like if you have thinner lips, your voice might sound different than if you have like,
Whoa.
there's all this science, I think. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think you raised first.
I guess like as a founding designer, like the only real person in the team, what do you do when you kind of don't have anyone to bounce ideas off, and say you don't feel confident about a design decision? What do you do in that scenario? What gives you confidence that you're making the right decision?
I think I, like everyone else I know, also do not know what I'm doing. And I just reach out. You just reach out and you say, hey, I have an idea. Do you have 5 minutes to like people that you admire? And this has helped me a lot. Also, because while you're doing all of this, you're trying to elevate your own craft as well, while like upping everyone else as well. So I think reaching out to people and saying, hey, like I think I've asked you as well at some point, like, hey, I made this thing, what do you think? Just like that, and then you get more feedback from outside of your bubble. How many questions do we have time for? I don't know.
Probably feel like one more in.
Yeah?
So with everything moving so fast,
Yeah.
and being in an early stage startup, it's easy that you make amazing designs, and artistic decisions and direction, but then the team like it drifts just because they're being easy misunderstand. There is not time. Any tips that you learned, tricks to try to reduce as much as possible the drift and keep everybody online and make your decision?
Yeah, I think that naturally happens, and it's also like part of the process. What I end up doing is that I used to add polish a lot, like at the end, but now it's a lot more, design is considered a lot more in the beginning, and then whenever I do end up adding polish, I also add it to the design system and all the MD files, and like everywhere, so that whatever agents the whole team uses to create interfaces, they kind of know. We use start call for any session, not talk, no open call, no, it's start call, or like stuff like that, yeah.
Nice, another big round of applause for Ema.
Thanks.
Very good.